You ever get that strange feeling in your chest, like something in your life is about to change, but you can't explain why? Yeah, that kind of feeling. That's exactly how my evening started that night. Just me, standing alone in my quiet kitchen, washing the same coffee mug I'd already washed twice that week. Not because it was dirty, just because there wasn't anything else to wash. Funny how silence can get so loud when you live alone. The house used to be full of noise once. Cooking sounds, music from the radio, someone humming while stirring soup. But after she passed away, all that noise disappeared. Now dinner usually meant one plate, one fork, one glass, and a whole lot of quiet. I dried the mug slowly and placed it back on the rack, right where it always sat, almost like a little memorial to better days. My refrigerator door was covered in old photos, most of them faded now, held up by random magnets collected over the years. One picture always caught my eye though. My kid, standing there in a graduation cap, big smile on his face, 17 years old. Back when life was simple. Back when we still talked. Back before money, pride, and stupid arguments destroyed everything between us. I stared at that picture for a long moment. Then the phone rang. Sharp, loud, sudden. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. I wiped my hands quickly and grabbed the phone from the wall. The caller ID showed a number I hadn't seen in over a year. My kid. For a moment, I just stood there staring. A whole year of silence between us suddenly felt like an ocean. The last time we talked, it ended in shouting. He asked for money. A lot of money. For some business opportunity. I said no. He stormed out. Door slammed. And that was the end of it. Or at least, that's what I thought. I lifted the phone slowly. My voice came out rough. Hello. There was a pause. Then a voice I knew better than my own. Dad. Man, hearing that word after a year felt strange. Like reopening an old wound. It's me, he said quietly. Of course it was. I gripped the phone tighter. Well, that's a surprise. Another pause. Then he sighed. I know we haven't talked in a while. Yeah, that was one way to say it. But his voice sounded different. Less confident. Almost nervous. Like a kid who broke something expensive and wasn't sure how mad his parents were going to be. I've been thinking, he continued. Me and my wife, we talked a lot recently. I stayed quiet. Didn't want to say the wrong thing. Dad, we miss you. That word hit harder than expected. Miss. He continued quickly. We were wondering if you'd come over for dinner tonight. Dinner? After a year? Just like that. I looked back at the empty kitchen. The quiet house. The single plate drying on the rack. I don't know, I muttered. It's been a long time. I know, he said. That's why we want to fix things. Then he added something that almost broke me. Families shouldn't stay broken forever. Man, hearing that nearly got me. Because deep down, I missed my kid too. A lot. Tonight. I asked. Yeah, he said quickly. My wife is cooking that pot roast you always liked. Now that surprised me. I'd eaten dinner with them maybe 3 times in 5 years. How did she even know what I liked? But before I could ask, he kept talking. Please, Dad. Let's just talk. Like we used to. I stared at the graduation photo again. Back when life made sense. Back when family meant something. All right, I finally said. Text me the address. His voice immediately brightened. Really? Yeah. I'll come. Thank you, he said. You won't regret it. Then he hung up. The silence returned. But it felt different now. Hopeful. Like maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. I walked upstairs to get ready. Opened the closet. Pushed past old sweaters. Until I found the suit I rarely wore anymore. The one my wife bought me years ago. Every man needs a good suit for important days, she used to say. Well, tonight felt important. I showered. Shaved. Looked at myself in the mirror. Man, when did I get so old? Grey hair. Lines around the eyes. But the suit still fit. Maybe a little looser now. Life has a funny way of shrinking you when you carry too many memories. Before leaving, I grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the cabinet. Good stuff. A peace offering. Something to share while we talked. My phone buzzed with the address. And when I saw the neighborhood, I frowned. That area was expensive. Real expensive. But hey, maybe the kid really had done well. I called a ride. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the back seat of a car heading toward a part of town I barely recognized. The houses kept getting bigger. The lawns greener. The streets quieter. By the time we reached the address, I was staring at something that looked more like a mansion than a house. Big stone columns. Fancy driveway. 2 luxury cars parked outside. My driver whistled. "Your son lives here." "Looks like it," I said slowly. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the door. My shoes suddenly felt cheap on that polished driveway. Before I could knock, the door opened. And there he was. My kid. Standing there smiling. He pulled me into a hug immediately. But something about it felt off. Too tight. Too desperate. "You made it," he said. "Of course," I replied. Then his wife appeared beside him, dressed like she walked out of a magazine. "Welcome," she said sweetly. "We are so happy you came." Inside the house looked even crazier. Marble floors. Huge chandelier. Paintings everywhere. I felt like I walked into a hotel lobby. "Wow," I said. "You guys are doing pretty well." My kid laughed quickly. "Yeah, got lucky in real estate." Lucky. Maybe. But something about the place made the hair on my neck stand up. Dinner was already set on the table. Fancy plates. Crystal glasses. The works. His wife smiled brightly. "Tonight is about family," she said. "Starting over." I nodded slowly. Maybe this really was a fresh start. Maybe we were finally fixing things. But I had no idea that within an hour, I'd receive a message that would save my life. And 30 minutes after that, the police would be knocking on their front door. And trust me, what happened next, I never saw coming. But the real nightmare hadn't even started yet. So there I was, standing in the middle of a house that probably cost more than everything I owned combined. And honestly, it felt weird. Not in a jealous way. Just strange. Because a year ago my kid was asking me for money. Now suddenly he's living in a place that looked like something out of a rich people magazine. But I pushed that thought aside. Maybe he really did get lucky. Life works like that sometimes. He took my coat and handed it to a woman standing near the hallway. Middle-aged. Quiet. Wearing a black dress like a housekeeper. She smiled politely. But when our eyes met, something in her expression felt different. Not unfriendly. More like worried. The kind of look someone gives when they know something you don't. But it disappeared so fast I thought maybe I imagined it. "Dinner's ready," my kid said cheerfully. He led me into the dining room. And man, that table looked like something from a movie. Big polished wood table. Fancy plates. Silver utensils. Crystal glasses shining under a huge chandelier. The smell of pot roast filled the room. And I gotta admit, it smelled amazing. "Wow," I said. "You guys didn't have to do all this." His wife smiled proudly. "We wanted tonight to be special." Then she added softly, "Family deserves effort." I nodded slowly. That sounded nice. Maybe they really meant it. Maybe this dinner really was about fixing things. My kid pulled out a chair for me. I sat down. He took the seat on my right. His wife sat on my left. Almost like they had planned it that way. The housekeeper appeared again carrying appetizers. Small plates with fancy food I couldn't even name. She placed them carefully on the table. Her hands were shaking a little. Not much. Just enough that I noticed. "You okay?" I asked kindly. She nodded quickly. "Yes, sir, just tired." Then she walked away fast. My kid popped open the whiskey bottle I brought. "Now this," he said smiling, "is a proper gift." He poured 3 glasses. Mine looked generous. Bigger than the others. He handed it to me. "To family," he said, raising his glass. "To fresh starts." His wife lifted hers too. To forgiveness. I raised mine. To better days. We drank. The whiskey burned warm going down. Good stuff. Smooth. Strong. For a few minutes. Everything felt normal. We talked about simple things. Weather. Old neighbors. Random memories. Then his wife leaned forward. "So," she said curiously, "how are the restaurants doing?" That question caught me a little off guard. But I answered, "Good actually. Still busy. 7 locations now." Her eyebrows lifted. 7. That's impressive. My kid grinned. "I told you he built an empire." I laughed. Empire is a big word. Just hard work. And a lot of help from my wife back when she was alive. My kid refilled my glass before I even realized it was empty. I didn't think much of it. Just assumed he was being a good host. The housekeeper returned with soup. Rich lobster bisque. Fancy stuff. But again, her hands were trembling slightly. When she placed my bowl down, she avoided eye contact. Something about that bothered me. But again, I ignored it. Dinner continued. More conversation. More drinks. My kid kept asking questions about the business. Not casual ones either. Detailed ones. How much profit does each location make? Who manages the finances? Do you ever think about retirement? Stuff like that. At first I thought he was just curious. But the questions kept coming. His wife joined in too. What would happen if you stepped back? Who would take over? You ever think about signing control to someone you trust? Now that question made me pause. I shrugged. I don't know. One day maybe. But I'm not ready yet. My kid nodded slowly. But I noticed something strange. Every time I finished my drink, it magically filled again. Either by him, or by his wife. And the weird thing? My head was starting to feel light. Way lighter than it should after just a couple glasses. The room felt warmer too. My thoughts slightly slower. I rubbed my forehead. "You okay, Dad?" My kid asked quickly. "Yeah, just feeling a little warm." His wife smiled sweetly. "Maybe the wine is stronger than usual." Wine? I was drinking whiskey. But again, I didn't argue. The housekeeper dropped a fork in the kitchen. The loud clatter echoed through the house. Everyone turned for a moment. She quickly picked it up. But I noticed her looking at me again. That same worried expression. Almost like she wanted to say something. But couldn't. Dinner continued. Pot roast came next. And damn, it tasted exactly like my wife used to make. That part almost broke me. "How did you learn this recipe?" I asked his wife. She smiled. "I did some research." Research. That was an odd word for cooking. But before I could ask more, my phone vibrated in my pocket. Just once. I reached for it casually. "Sorry," I said. "Probably work." My kid leaned forward. Concern in his voice. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just checking." I pulled the phone out. The number on the screen wasn't saved in my contacts. Local number. But unfamiliar. That alone felt strange. Restaurant managers usually call me directly. And I knew all their numbers. Then another vibration came. A text message. For some reason, a weird chill ran through me. I opened it. And what I read made my blood run ice cold. The message said only 7 words. "Stand up and leave now. Trust no one." My heart skipped. I read it again. Same words. Same warning. Suddenly, the room didn't feel warm anymore. It felt dangerous. And the worst part? I had no idea yet just how serious that message really was, because the truth behind it was far darker than I could ever imagine. And in the next few minutes, everything I thought I knew about my own family was about to shatter. But what I discovered next nearly stopped my heart. I stared at the phone screen for a few seconds. 7 simple words. Stand up and leave now. Trust no one. At first, my brain tried to brush it off. Spam. Wrong number. Maybe some dumb prank. But something deep in my gut said otherwise. You know that feeling when your instincts start whispering, something isn't right. Yeah, that feeling was getting louder. I slowly locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. My kid was watching me closely. Too closely. What was that? He asked. His voice sounded casual, but his eyes were sharp, like he was studying my reaction. I shrugged and leaned back in my chair. Just work stuff. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't fully convinced. His wife smiled and pushed the plate of roast closer to me. Eat, she said sweetly. You barely touched your food. I picked up my fork, but suddenly, the smell of the food didn't feel comforting anymore. It felt heavy, like something about it was wrong. Still, I took a bite, and while chewing, I glanced toward the kitchen. The housekeeper was standing there again, half hidden behind the doorway, watching me. The moment our eyes met, she quickly looked down. My phone vibrated again, this time twice. My heart started beating faster. I pulled it out again. Another message. Same number. This one was longer. Don't drink anything else. Don't finish the food. Leave politely. My chest tightened. Now this wasn't a prank anymore. This was a warning. And suddenly a few things clicked in my head. The constant refilling of my glass. The weird warmth in my body. The light-headed feeling. My kid leaned forward again. You look pale, he said. You sure you're okay? His wife chimed in quickly. Maybe you need more wine. She reached for my glass, but I quickly placed my hand over it. No thanks, I said calmly. I'm good. For the first time that evening, their smiles faded slightly, just for a second. But I saw it. I wiped my mouth slowly with a napkin. My brain started replaying the night. The strange housekeeper. The nervous hands. The warning looks. And now these messages. My stomach twisted. What if? No. That thought was too crazy. But still. What if it wasn't? My kid cleared his throat. So Dad, we were actually hoping to talk about something tonight. Here it comes. I could feel it. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. You've worked hard your whole life. Built something amazing. I nodded slowly. Thanks. He continued. But businesses like yours, they're hard to manage alone. His wife joined in smoothly. That's why families usually plan ahead. Transfer control before it's too late. There it was again. Control. Ownership. Money. My phone buzzed again. Another message. I opened it under the table. This one hit even harder. They put something in your drink. Small dose already. Leave now. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. Poison. Drug. My head suddenly felt heavier. Was it real? Or was the message messing with my mind? But then I remembered how fast the alcohol had hit me. Too fast. Way too fast. I looked up slowly. My kid and his wife were staring at me again. Waiting. Dad, he said. You with us? I forced a small smile. Yeah. What were you saying? His wife answered. We were thinking. Maybe it's time you retired. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. My kid leaned closer. And maybe. You let us take over the business. There it was. Finally. Straight to the point. I leaned back in my chair. You want the restaurants? He smiled awkwardly. Well, eventually. Not immediately. Just planning ahead. I nodded slowly. Inside my head alarms were screaming. The warning messages. The strange behavior. The heavy feeling in my body. Everything started forming a dark picture. My phone buzzed again. One more message. I opened it carefully. Kitchen camera shows everything. They are waiting for you to collapse. My stomach dropped. Collapse? My kid laughed suddenly. Remember when I worked in your first restaurant? You made me wash dishes for 6 months. I forced a chuckle. Yeah, you hated it. His wife smiled too. But now we understand how valuable the business is. I stood up slowly. My chair scraped against the floor. Both of them froze. "Everything okay?" my kid asked quickly. I grabbed my jacket from the chair. "Actually, I just remembered something." "What?" he asked. "I promised someone I'd call tonight." His wife stood too. "You can call from here." I shook my head. "No. I should go." The smiles on their faces vanished completely now. My kid stepped closer. "You just got here. Stay for dessert." I raised my hand slightly. "Another night." His voice became firmer. "Dad." Something in that tone sent a chill down my spine, but I kept my face calm. "I'm serious. I need to leave." Then, from the kitchen, the housekeeper appeared again, and for a split second, she gave me a tiny nod, almost like saying, "Good." My kid looked between us quickly. Suspicion flashed across his face. "Did she say something to you?" he asked sharply. "No," I replied. "Why would she?" He forced a laugh. "Just asking." I walked toward the door slowly. Every step felt heavier, my heart pounding harder. Behind me I heard whispering. His wife speaking fast. Then my kid's voice. Low. Angry. And that's when I realized something terrifying. If the messages were telling the truth, then the danger wasn't over yet. Because leaving that house might be the most dangerous part of the night. And the next thing that happened proved exactly that. Because just as I reached the front door, my phone rang again. My hand was already on the door handle. All I had to do was turn it. Just one small movement, and I'd be outside. But before I could do that, my phone started ringing. Not vibrating. Ringing. Loud. Sharp. Echoing through that giant fancy house. Every head in the room turned toward me. My kid's face tightened. "Who's calling?" he asked quickly. I pulled the phone from my pocket. Same unknown number. The one sending the messages. For a second I thought about ignoring it. But something inside me said, "Answer it." I lifted the phone slowly to my ear. "Hello." The voice on the other end was low, female, and nervous. "Please don't react," the voice whispered quickly. "Just listen." My heart started pounding. It was the housekeeper. I recognized her voice immediately. "Leave the house now," she continued. "They already gave you something. It's not strong yet, but it will be." My throat went dry. "What did they?" "Don't ask questions," she interrupted quickly. "Just go." Then the line went dead. I slowly lowered the phone. My kid was watching me like a hawk now. "What's going on?" he asked. I forced a shrug. "Wrong number." He didn't believe that. I could see it in his eyes. His wife stepped forward with a smile that didn't reach her eyes anymore. "You really should stay a little longer." Her voice sounded sweet, but something underneath it felt cold. "I appreciate the dinner," I said calmly, "but I'm heading home." My kid suddenly blocked the doorway. Not aggressively. Just standing there. But it was enough. "Dad," he said slowly, "we haven't even finished our conversation." I sighed. "Another day." "No," he said. "We should talk tonight." The room suddenly felt smaller, tighter. My head was starting to spin slightly now. Just like the message warned. Whatever they gave me, it was working slowly. I needed to get out. Now. I stepped closer to him. "You gonna move?" I asked. He stared at me for a few seconds, then laughed. "Relax." He stepped aside. But as he did, he leaned close and whispered something. "You look really pale." That sent a chill straight down my spine. I opened the door. Cool night air hit my face immediately. Fresh. Cold. Real. It helped clear my head a little. I walked down the front steps calmly. Not rushing. Because sometimes, running makes people chase you. And I wasn't sure yet how far they were willing to go. Behind me I heard the door close. But I could feel eyes watching. I reached the end of the driveway, pulled out my phone, and called a ride. 5 minutes. That's what the app said. 5 long minutes. The street was quiet. Too quiet. No cars. No people. Just giant houses and perfectly trimmed lawns. My vision blurred slightly. Damn. Whatever they put in that drink was definitely doing something. I sat down on the curb, trying to stay calm, trying to stay awake. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, careful, coming from behind me. I turned my head, and there she was, the housekeeper, walking quickly down the driveway, looking over her shoulder every few seconds. When she reached me, she spoke fast. They're watching from the window. Don't turn around. I swallowed hard. What did they give me? A sedative, she said quietly. Strong enough to make you pass out. My chest tightened. Why? Her eyes filled with anger. Because they planned to make it look like a heart attack. For a moment, my brain stopped working. A heart attack. They said your age made it believable, she continued. They planned everything. The world spun slightly. You heard all this? I asked. Yes. I work in the kitchen. They didn't know there was a camera connected to the security system. My ride notification popped up. 2 minutes away. The housekeeper grabbed my arm. You need a hospital. Immediately. What about you? I asked. She shook her head. I'll handle that. But listen carefully. They are desperate. If they realize you know the truth, they might try something worse. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. The car headlights appeared at the end of the street. Finally, my ride. The housekeeper stepped back quickly. Go, she whispered. The car pulled up beside me. I stood slowly. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself into the back seat. Hospital, I told the driver. He nodded and pulled away. As the car turned the corner, I looked back one last time. My kid was standing at the end of the driveway, watching the car leave. His face completely dark. No smile. No warmth. Just anger. Cold. Sharp anger. And in that moment, I realized something that made my stomach drop. The dinner wasn't the real plan. It was only the beginning. Because people who try to kill once usually don't stop after the first failure. And the next morning, when the police finally got involved, the truth that came out of that house was far worse than anyone expected. But the biggest shock was still waiting for me. The hospital lights felt too bright. You ever notice that? When your head is spinning and your body feels weak, hospital lights feel like someone turned the sun on inside the building. The driver helped me inside. I could barely walk straight by that point. A nurse saw me leaning against the reception counter and rushed over. Sir, are you all right? I think someone drugged me, I said. Those words got attention real fast. Within minutes, I was lying on a hospital bed while doctors checked my blood pressure and took samples. My vision kept fading in and out. Everything felt slow, heavy, like my body wanted to shut down. One doctor looked at the nurse and said quietly, "Sedative, strong 1." That confirmed it. I wasn't imagining things. Someone really had put something in my drink. The doctor leaned over me. "Do you know who might have given it to you?" I closed my eyes for a second. And honestly, saying it out loud hurt more than the drug. "My son," I whispered. The doctor froze for a moment, then nodded. "All right. We are calling the police." Hearing that word felt strange. Police. Because no matter how bad things had been between us, I never imagined my own kid would end up in a situation like this. But the truth was the truth. A few minutes later, 2 officers walked into the room. One older, one younger. The older one pulled a chair beside my bed. "Sir," he said calmly, "can you tell us what happened tonight?" So I did. Everything. The phone call. The dinner invitation. The strange behavior. The warning messages. The housekeeper. The sedative. The officers listened carefully. Not interrupting. Not judging. I woke up to the sound of voices outside my hospital room. 2 officers again. But this time, they weren't alone. And when the door opened, what they told me next changed everything. Because apparently, that dinner plan had been discussed for weeks. and someone had recorded the entire conversation. But the person who recorded it was the one person my kid never suspected. Morning came slowly. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the same thought kept coming back. My own kid tried to kill me. Man, that's not a sentence any parent ever expects to think. The four was still in my arm when the hospital door opened. 2 police officers walked in. Same ones from last night. But this time, they weren't alone. Standing behind them was the housekeeper. She looked nervous. Hands clasped together. Eyes tired. The moment she saw me awake, relief spread across her face. "You're okay," she said softly. I nodded. "Thanks to you." The older officer pulled a chair closer to my bed. "We have something important to show you." He placed a small digital recorder on the table beside me. My heart started beating faster. "What's that?" I asked. "Evidence." He pressed the play button. For a second, there was just background noise. Clinking glasses, dishes, kitchen sounds. Then voices. 2 voices I knew too well. My kid. And his wife. The recording was crystal clear. His wife spoke first. "Are you sure the dose isn't too strong?" My stomach twisted. My kid replied calmly. "The pharmacist friend said it's perfect. Just enough to slow his heart. Not enough to look suspicious." My chest tightened. Hearing it was worse than imagining it. His wife laughed softly. "And once he's gone, the restaurants become yours." My kid answered quickly. "Ours." Then he added something that made my blood run cold. He should have just given them to me when I asked. But he wanted to act like the big boss. His wife sighed. "Well, after tonight, he won't be acting like anything." The recording stopped. Silence filled the hospital room. For a moment, nobody spoke. The officer looked at me carefully. That recording came from the house security system. He pointed gently toward the housekeeper. She accessed it from the kitchen camera. I turned my head slowly toward her. She looked embarrassed. "They talked about it several times," she said quietly. "At first, I thought I misunderstood. But last night, they said it clearly." Her voice trembled slightly. "I couldn't let them do that." I felt something tight in my chest. Not from the drug. From emotion. "You saved my life," I said. She shook her head. "I just did the right thing." The younger officer crossed his arms. "Well, the right thing just helped us arrest 2 people." My head snapped up. "Arrest?" The officer nodded. "Early this morning." My heart pounded. "What happened?" He leaned against the wall. "When we arrived at the house, they were already packing. Packing. Trying to run. Figures. We questioned them," he continued. "At first they denied everything. But once we played the recording..." He shrugged. "They stopped talking." I leaned back against the pillow. Part of me felt relief. Part of me felt sick. Because hearing those words again in my head made something painfully clear. This wasn't anger. This wasn't a mistake. It was greed. Pure greed. My kid chose money over his own father. The officer checked his watch. "They're currently in custody. Charges will likely include attempted murder." That word hit hard. Attempted murder. Against me. The nurse stepped into the room to check my vitals. "You should rest," she said kindly. "You've had a rough night." But resting was impossible. My brain kept replaying memories. Birthday parties. School events. Fishing trips. All the little moments that build a life between a father and a son. How did we go from that to poison in a whiskey glass? The officer stood up. "One more thing." I looked at him. "They asked to see you." My stomach dropped. Both of them. The room felt colder suddenly. They want to talk before the formal charges are filed. I stared at the ceiling for a long moment. Part of me wanted to say no. Walk away. Never see them again. But another part of me needed answers. Needed to hear it. Straight from their mouths. I slowly sat up in the hospital bed. "When?" The officer replied calmly. "This afternoon." I nodded once. All right. Because if my kid really thought he could poison his father and walk away with everything, then he was about to learn something very important. Family betrayal cuts deep. But justice cuts deeper. And when I finally looked into his eyes that afternoon, the truth he admitted was even worse than the recording. Because apparently, the dinner wasn't even his first plan to get rid of me. That afternoon, the police took me to the station. The doctor said I was stable enough to leave the hospital, but they still insisted I take it easy. Easy? Yeah, right. There's nothing easy about walking into a police station to face the person who tried to kill you, especially when that person is your own kid. The officers led me down a quiet hallway. Fluorescent lights humming overhead. Grey walls. Cold floors. The kind of place where truth usually shows up whether people like it or not. We stopped in front of a small room. The older officer turned to me. You don't have to do this. I know, I replied. But I want to. He nodded and opened the door. Inside the room, my kid sat at a metal table. Hands cuffed. Hair messy. Eyes tired. For the first time in a long time. He didn't look confident. He looked small. Human. Broken. His wife sat in another room down the hall. Separated. The officer closed the door behind me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Just silence. Heavy silence. Then he looked up. Dad. Hearing that word again felt strange. Different this time. I pulled out the chair and sat across from him. You look terrible, I said honestly. He laughed weakly. Well, jail food isn't great. That little joke died quickly in the air between us. I leaned forward slightly. Why? Just one word. But it carried 50 years of life behind it. He rubbed his face with his cuffed hands. You already know. Money, I said. He nodded slowly. Yeah. But it wasn't just that. I waited. He sighed deeply. You always had everything under control. The business. The decisions. The power. I frowned. You were supposed to earn that. His eyes flashed with frustration. That's the problem. I didn't want to earn it. I wanted it now. That honesty hurt more than lies. You could have asked again, I said quietly. I did, he snapped. And you said no. Yes, I replied calmly. Because you weren't ready. He laughed bitterly. Well, I found another solution. That sentence sat in the air like poison. You planned to kill your own father, I said slowly. He looked down. Yeah. For a moment, my chest felt tight again. Not from the sedative. From heartbreak. I studied his face, trying to find the kid from that graduation photo. But all I saw was a stranger. Was it worth it? I asked. He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. The officer knocked gently on the door. Time's up. I stood up slowly. My kid suddenly looked nervous. Wait. I paused. He swallowed hard. Are you pressing charges? That question hung heavy in the room. And honestly, that decision had kept me awake all night. But the answer had become clear. Yes, I said firmly. His shoulders dropped. Not anger. Just defeat. Why? He whispered. That question surprised me. Why? I leaned closer. Because if I walk away from this, you'll never learn anything. He stared at the table, tears forming in his eyes. For what it's worth, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I answered honestly. I believe you. And that surprised him. But sorry doesn't erase choices. The officer opened the door. I stepped into the hallway. And that was the last time I saw my kid as a free man. Months later, the court trial finished. The recording, the messages, the hospital report. Everything proved the truth. The judge sentenced both of them to several years in prison. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud planning, the whole list. People often ask me what happened to the business after that. The truth? I kept running it. But I changed something important. Every year now, Part of the profit goes to a foundation that helps employees build their own restaurants. Real opportunities. The kind my kid didn't want to work for. And the housekeeper? The woman who saved my life? She doesn't work as a housekeeper anymore. I offered her a job managing one of my restaurants. She said yes. Turns out, she's better at running a kitchen than most professionals. Funny how life works sometimes. You lose family in the worst way possible, and gain a different kind of family in return. These days, my house isn't as quiet as it used to be. Employees drop by, friends visit, and sometimes the restaurant managers come over for dinner. Real dinner. No poison. No secrets. Just food, laughter, and honest people. But every once in a while, I still look at that old graduation photo on my refrigerator. The kid smiling back from that picture. That kid never wanted to hurt anyone. Life just took him down the wrong road. And maybe, one day, after he finishes his sentence, he'll find his way back. But until that day, I've learned one important lesson. Trust is powerful. Family is important. But respect is something even blood can't guarantee. And if there's one thing this whole nightmare taught me, it's this. Sometimes the people who try to destroy you end up revealing the strength you didn't know you had. So if you ever find yourself surrounded by betrayal, remember something simple. Truth always finds a way out. Just like I did that night. And if this story taught you anything today, make sure you value the people who truly stand beside you. Because loyalty is rarer than money, and far more valuable. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories told with a deep voice.